welcome to yet another episode of Disruption Talks. And you may be seeing us talking all the time. Just 8 days ago, we were hosting our Disruption Forum AI in Retail, also with people from OLX. And it should come as no surprise that this episode of Disruption Talks also comes with a guest from OLX. So, my guest today is Damian Sosnowski, Head of Engineering at OLX. Welcome, Damian.
Hello, Philip. Thanks for having me. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
The pleasure is all ours, I'm sure. And of course, dear audience, I don't think I have to remind you, but I still will. This is an open forum, so post your comments, make sure that you ask the questions that you want to get the answers to, and I'll be doing my best as your host to ask them to Damian. But in the meantime, Damian, I think we owe it to the audience for them to get to know you better, because I've had a couple of opportunities to talk to you. I know a little bit about you, but the audience, they can only see your LinkedIn. So how about we find out more about Damian, but also about Damian in the role that he holds right now at OLX?
Sure. So, long story short, I'm head of engineering in OLX in the real estate client unit. So it's one of the units that we have within the entire OLX group company that is quite big. And in simple terms, head of engineering means that I'm a manager of managers. So I have several teams within my tribe. We are divided in tribes, and those teams have their own engineering managers, and I'm synchronizing their work and hopefully helping them to do the good work within their teams. And I think it's worth explaining a little bit what is real estate in terms of OLX. So OLX is divided into several client units. There is this one big unit called horizontals, and I think this is fairly well known, olx.pl, right? It's like a big platform that you can basically buy everything from everyone, well, quote unquote, right? But on top of that, or next to it, we have so-called specialized verticals, and there are two main verticals. One is motors, and in Poland it's Automoto, basically, that allows you to sell cars and related stuff. And we have real estate, and real estate in Poland is represented by Autodom. So this is basically a real estate marketplace, the place where people that want to buy or rent property can go and look for the perfect property. So, and real estate is the unit that I work in, and I'm one of 3 head of engineerings within that unit.
I'm going to ask you more about those numbers because I just showed it down. This manager of managers part is really cool. And dear audience, the reason why we're also hosting this episode, the title is 0 to 100 challenges a head of engineering has to face in 2024. So we're going to explore not only this topic, but also the aspect of how Damian got to the place where he is right now, starting as a freelance developer back in 2007. So stay tuned, because this is not just an episode for people who are heads of engineering right now, but people who want to become engineering managers and then the manager of managers in the head of engineering position. So can you tell me about that? The path from the freelance developer to head of engineering. I'm not using the programming language on purpose upon your request,
Sure.
But I think that there might be a couple people in the audience who are those freelance developers right now, or simply put, individual contributors. And it would be great to hear your path and then listen about the differences that you see between, individual contribution and then having to take responsibility over a whole team. So tell me.
Sure. No, it's a very good question, and actually also a bit difficult one, I would say. I'm usually not the kind of person that looks back frequently and trying to analyze what happened. But it's still very interesting. And I don't think back in the day when I was young PHP developer, let's admit it publicly, I don't think back in the day I wanted to be like a manager, right? I think I even considered being a manager as something relatively mundane. Like you sit on the meetings, you talk to people all the time, and you fill Excel files. And back in the day, I wanted to do a real job, Of course, that was a very silly. I was young and silly, so I had silly thoughts. But later, especially when I moved to bigger companies, like that was Roche at that time, I noticed that what I like to make an impact. like actually change things. I like to see that my work results in the actual change within the company or the product. And later I noticed that I also like to, well, I like to be a leader, but not in terms of hierarchy. I'm not a person that really values hierarchy that much, but I like to lead initiatives. I like to make things happen. I like to, I like this feeling of ownership that comes with driving something from the beginning till the end and see the impact, see the result. And I would say so. It happens that role of a team lead or engineering manager in different companies is role that allowed me to do that. You have a team. The team allows you to have much bigger impact than an individual contributor. And usually the ownership, the team is this like basic unit that drives the initiatives. So, being a manager allowed me to make a much bigger impact than being an individual contributor. It allows me and my team to own and lead initiatives. And later, I learned that actually working with people, it might be a bit challenging, but also it's extremely rewarding, like helping them grow, coaching them. So I learned to like this part as well. And here I am, like head of engineering is once you move to this manager path, I would say, and usually in most companies after senior engineer, if you want to go further down the ladder, you have to decide whether you take technical part or technical path or management path. Once you switch to management path, you like switching from engineering manager to head of engineering is like a natural next step. You increase the area of your responsibility. You switch slightly to being this manager of managers, and we can talk about it later because this is like a meaningful switch. But here I am. But I would say, I still like to stay close to the metal, so to speak. I like to involve myself, if I have time, in architectural discussions, in technical discussions, review some RFC documents, and after hours, I do code some side projects. So I still consider myself, an engineer, even if my role right now is mostly about managing. So there is this nerdy engineer inside me still, I hope.
I can attest to that because I do good research about my guests, and I've even gone on your GitHub, and I'm not a technical
Ah,
person, but the amount of contributions that you've had in this year alone, despite being a head of engineering, I think, well, you're not idling. So, dear audience, that is completely true. Damian likes to stay close to the actual work despite being a manager of managers. So, from what you said, am I understanding this correctly that you used that, the silliness, so you had silly thoughts because of the young age? I know many people who despite an old age have silly thoughts, so I wouldn't be limiting that term. But um, would you say that this sort of maturity comes with the team lead position, and once you sort of make the decision between individual contributor and team lead, not even an engineering manager, but the moment you decide I want to take responsibility over somebody else, that's founders of startups often say that it's much harder to go 0 to 1,000 than 1,000 to 100,000. And I'm wondering if this 0 to 1,000 is this moment where you choose, okay, I'm not going to go into lead engineer or software architect. I'm going to actually look after the team. Is that the moment, or is it later in the stage of a manager?
I think yes and no. So yes, to some extent, this is the moment, right? Like when you switch to being a manager, like from a typical individual contributor, you have to start thinking in a different perspective. Like your daily work is not about implementing something. Your daily work is not about coding with your own hands. You work via other people. Like your teammates, your team is doing the actual work. As much as I don't like this term, like actual work, and your job is to help them as much as you can, so they can be, as efficient as possible. Right? It's a different mindset. It's a different way of thinking, and also, well, you have to take care of them, right? It's also this people management topic is very important, and if you manage, there is this magical moment that is combination of like luck and good management, that you have a team that is like happy, motivated, focused, and highly efficient. And that is where the magic happens, right? It's not easy, and but if you have it, this is like amazing feeling, right? Because you are like a bunch of people having good time and doing great stuff, and that's a really really nice. I would say this is like the best moment of being a manager, right? It's not easy to have it. It doesn't happen all the time, but once you have it, it's like the best part of that job. Um, but also, yes, you're right that this is like the moment of switching your mindset and also gaining a bit of maturity, because you realize that there is a lot of work that needs to happen in order to actually be able to do the work, right? There is a lot of preparation, planning, processes, especially in big companies, that have to be in place for the individual contributors to be able to work properly. And that's something that is not obvious, like especially if you don't have this like a lot of experience, that is not obvious. And I see people, I can see that quite frequently, that people don't realize that, but they see if this is not working, like if something is not done well, or if there are problems in the organization, the individual contributors, so to speak, like the engineers, can feel it. But I said no, because it's also not that easy. I always say that above some level, even if you're individual contributor, you also have to get this mindset. It's not like as an individual contributor, you can just focus on coding. Above some level, there is always an expectation that you will also work on a different level of abstraction, that you will be able to, that you will work with people a lot, even if, for example, staff engineer, right? It's a different kind of work. You are not a people manager, but you still work with people a lot. You have to influence them. You have to, convince them to some good practices, to do, like you review the architecture. There's like a whole set of work that you do with people as staff engineer, and that is also a switch that you have to take. Like even if you stay on the technical path, you also have to mind the bigger picture, the high level picture of the company. You also have to have this mindset of like noticing problems on a higher level within the area of like cross teams collaboration, let's say, even if you're a staff engineer, or sometimes even when you're a senior engineer. And there are people that get that. There are people that are able to do that, and they are amazing staff engineers, even if they don't go the management path.
Okay. I'm making so many notes. I don't even know what to ask about. But and what would you say to yourself with regards to the next position after head of engineering? What comes after that? Is that VP engineering, or is it a different position?
It vastly depends on the company, but usually I would say it's probably director of engineering. At least that's how it looks in OLX. Like the next step is director of engineering, and it means that you take the ownership of the entire engineering unit. So in our case, it's like 100 people. What I would say, that's actually a good question. I think. I would say at that level, you operate more on the business terms than engineering terms, so to speak, right? Like you have to, the way I envision it, at least, you are more a partner to other high-level leadership, like a product director. You are a partner to the commercial teams. You are the partner to our business leaders within different countries that we operate in. You're a partner to the CTO, and you are more focused on how to grow our business, how to improve our how to grow our business with the engineering that you have, right? So I would say it's a different perspective. You don't focus that much on the engineering process itself, but rather what is needed from the engineering point of view to make the business grow and glow. That would be my like take on this team, but on this role. But of course, it still means that you are managing this engineering unit, right? You have direct reports. You have to make sure that the engineering works as expected. You know that the quality is there, that the efficiency is there. This is all given, but I think this is like the basic of your work. Like on top, you have to support the business with your engineering capabilities.
Okay. So you're saying a little bit about OLX, so I'm gonna have to ask you about that in a second. But we promised everybody to speak about the challenges ahead of engineering has to face in 2024, and let's talk about that. Why are those times challenging? What's wrong with those times to begin with, or challenging if we want to be more diplomatic?
Yeah, what's wrong with those times? It's a good question that I'm not able to answer. But focusing on us, and I think a lot of people are asking those questions, like what's wrong with those times. But focusing on what I know, we all see that, right? Like the times are challenging. The economics are very unstable, and kind of no one knows what lies ahead. Will we have a good prospering economic, or should we expect recession? Not to mention all the geopolitics that are happening, unfortunately, all over the place. And the market is different. The money are much more expensive than they used to be, and we can see it on the startup scene, right? When the startups are struggling because it's much more difficult to get proper financing. So fortunately, we don't have those problems. Like OLX is a profitable company, but it still means that everywhere everyone is much more mindful about the cost versus the profit. And we can see it everywhere in our industry as well. We've seen layoffs happening in different companies. Like recently, I believe Spotify had huge layoffs, right?
Yeah.
And profitability and efficiency is now mentioned like everywhere. On every single meeting, you can like see people mentioning that we have to be profitable, more profitable, drive better profits. We have to be efficient. We have to reduce. We have to focus on that, right? And that affects engineering departments as well. And it usually what it means is the flat headcount, or sometimes even reduction of the headcount, depending on the company. It means that roadmaps and goals have to be refactored with a very strong focus on all the initiatives that can bring profit in a short timeline. Like there is usually, it's not the case, fortunately for us in real estate. We are able to invest in some technical, long-term technical investments. But in general, the expectation is that we will focus on everything that is able to bring the profit up in a short period of time. And that means that again, like big investments, refactorings, or building new teams, scaling up with more people, this is most likely not possible right now. And it also means that you have to handle what comes to you with the people that you have, compromising on other things on your roadmap. In OLX, it means that we are, for example, that results in some interesting situations. Like, for example, in OLX, we are now heavily investing in unification and consolidation of capabilities. And both in real estate, so we are now in the middle of a complex and big project of unifying our platform and offering across the countries that we operate in. That's a big investment that is meant to bring the efficiency up, right, and simplify a lot of things. But even within the OLX, we are unifying our capabilities across the units. We want to have some shared capabilities, shared functionalities that are not reinvented again and again across the units, but are implemented once and reused across the entire company. And this is also a way to reduce the cost and increase the efficiency. So, so this is both challenging and interesting, I would say. It means that you cannot work the way you worked in recent years. Like in recent years, we were growing like crazy. We grew literally from 0 to 100 engineers, right? But everyone was hiring back in a day. Now we have a flat headcount, and it means that we have to, be able to prioritize and juggle the priorities properly. It's challenging sometimes. Sometimes you get a legal requirement from European Union, and you have to deal with it with the people that you have. So those are the challenges that you face. But it also means that like this focus on efficiency is a good thing in general, right? It allows you to trim some fat here and there, review the processes that you have, and try to eliminate the things that are not absolutely unnecessary. Necessary. So that can also have positive results.
Damian, I've been making notes. I have a couple follow-up questions, but please confirm, is my camera choppy? Because for me, it seems like I'm on a slideshow. Or do I look okay to you?
It's acceptable, I would say, but yes, like your
Okay.
frame rate is rather low.
Give me 3 seconds. I hope that maybe perhaps it's a matter of the devices just not doing well with the temperature. But if you can hear me okay, I hope the audience can forgive this. And we're actually seeing in the audience quite a few people saying hello, hello, Mateusz, Kala, Kasim, Gagik. I hope I said those names right. But you mentioned Spotify at the beginning. They had to cut 11% of their workforce. They made a pretty, objectively speaking, good enough attempt at explaining the reasoning. From what I read, it was about that they overhired. They have also provided, a couple months of severance, a couple of months of medical looking after. So not the worst of all the layoffs, but generally speaking, there is no way, no good way to handle a crisis that people don't end up somehow disappointed or unhappy. And I'm not even mentioning the layoffs, but even challenging times when you compare them to, let's say, past couple years of what we've had in tech that have been, there's budget for everything. We can do all of sorts of innovative projects. There's always enough people, and there's never a problem of recruitment or headcount up to now. I'm curious to hear, how do you manage the more sort of expectation management side of humans, especially in such large teams that you mentioned? Because, of course, how do you sort of keep people motivated when the same job that they're doing is, I don't want to equate more challenging with less satisfying, but I think you know what I mean. Like, how do you manage the bad times so the people don't say bad times?
It's a good question. I would say big part of that is, I would say the best approach in that situation is being honest, to be honest. So, people, it's not like you can hide from the, we are talking about intelligent, probably above, average intelligence, people that are educated, that, read the internet, and they are pretty good in like noticing things, right? So you are not able to hide from your teams and from your people that times are challenging. They know. And they will also quickly notice if the company struggles or not. And again, fortunately for OLX, I would say OLX is stable. Like, we don't have major problems, right? But yes, they've been restructurizations in OLX. So I think the honesty is important, and simply admitting that yes, the situation it is as it is. The leadership has to take some often difficult decisions, and try to basically explain the reasoning behind that is the best approach. And what I think is key here is that people, even if the bad things are happening, even if there are layoffs, even if the budgets for traveling are being cut, or you cannot organize integration meetings anymore. And now we can, but previously in OLX there was a freeze on that. Now we are fortunately able to organize those as well. So simply, they have to know, they have to realize why, and they have to know what's coming. And I think this is like the most important factor, looking at how the things evolved in the past, in the recent year. that if people are know what's coming, if people know what to expect, they are much more not happy, but they are calm, right? They know what
Yeah.
they can plan accordingly, so to speak. So this is like on this like higher level. And again, you have to admit, like the times are difficult. Sometimes you don't know what's coming, and it's not like I'm making all the decisions, right? Like the decisions about how the company will tackle difficult economical times. It doesn't come from me. It comes from top leadership. So I can just propagate the message from the leadership. I can bring the feedback from the people and try to get more details. That's what I can do on my level. But I can also reassure them that what's the situation, and that we continue working on what we work, right? So that's a high level picture. And in terms of the work that they are doing, I don't think it means that we are doing boring work, to be honest. Yes, the priorities are different. You have to focus on different initiatives. Some investments are not possible. But again, it's still quite a lot of interesting work up there. And actually, as I said at the beginning, like focusing on being more efficient, on quality, on the efficiency, on eliminating the unnecessary work, and maybe even investing on improving some technical aspects of our platform to again improve the efficiency. This is what we are doing. That might be actually exciting. That might be an interesting work, and that um, if you explain it properly to the team, so they see what's the goal and what's the big picture, that actually they might be quite happy about it, right? There is this a very inspiring saying that like you can have two workers. You ask one, "What are you doing?" "I'm just putting the stones day after day to build some kind of wall. It's extremely boring and hard work," right? And you ask another one, "What are you doing?" I'm building a wonderful cathedral for the god," right? And they're both doing the same work, but one realizes why. So I know it might be a little bit cheesy, but there is an important message in that sentence.
I heard that message, first of all. Is it cheesy? Absolutely. Does it work? Yes. So we can stick to that message completely. But also, I'm hearing from the comments that actually my camera is okay. Hello, Mateusz, Mr. Damian, and Mr. Philip. I hope that there's some people from OLX because I've been inviting a lot of them from my network. And I'm also pretty sure, Damian, you should check like the statistics for traffic spike on OLX careers, because the way that you're describing yourself as a manager, the way you're describing OLX as a company that, despite challenges, knows how to manage them. This sounds like, a lot of applications trying to start right now. But
Hopefully.
back here,
we are hiring actually.
Let's leave those announcements for the very last minute. Then we can drop even the link in the comments. But we spoke about almost everything. And I don't even know if I should ask you this question, because all of your answers collectively summed up from the previous questions provide an answer to my question, which would be, what makes a good head of engineering? And I think that bit by bit, you already sort of answered that question in every answer of the previous question, unless you would like to, conclude it in some way, just like you did with the cathedral metaphor that I liked.
No, it's. I think it's still like there are some aspects that we can tackle here. I don't think there is a simple answer to that question, to be honest. And same with, for example, being engineering manager. There are like different flavors of being engineering manager or head of engineering.
Wait. Let me rephrase this. I'm pretty sure that you think of yourself as a good head of engineer. What makes you feel that you're doing your job well as a head of engineering? Let me flip that question that way.
Sure. Yeah,
unless you prefer
I think
no,
that's fine. So first of all, the role of head of engineering is more strategic than tactical, and I think this is the biggest difference. And also, this is the difference that future head of engineerings they have to realize. And and this is like a constant journey, right? I adjusting to like working to be better in that role. So and that means engineering manager is a tactical role. You focus on your daily work, you focus on delivering the work that is planned for you, you focus on like a sprint, a month, a quarter. Head of engineering is focusing on long term, like what your teams will be doing this year. What is the long term roadmap? What is the vision and the long term goal for your teams? And of course, you do it together with the product in most of the companies. But that's like the biggest difference, right? You have to look ahead, not in the near future. Um, Apart from that, I would say the head of engineering needs to be a good communicator, because communication is like a huge amount of work that you do, like both up and down, and this is important. This is like a bit, I would say, this might be even understatement how important communication is, both verbal and written, and for many roles. But the higher you are, the more important it is. And there's like, I think there is also a role when you have to be business oriented. At least you have to have a good understanding of the business perspective, how your company makes money, how your work affects users and businesses. What is your company struggling with? Not only technically, but from from a business perspective, and what obstacles are slowing it down, and how you and your teams can try to solve those, right? And again, like we've talked about director role. I think even head of engineering have to have this very good understanding of the business perspective. This is very important. And some would disagree, but I think that head of engineering should still be a tech-savvy person. You see that I try to be. But you don't have to be the best engineer in the room. Probably you even should not be the best engineer in the room. But you should be able to have a meaningful, reasonable technical discussions with your team. You should be able to understand the challenges that they are facing and the solutions that they are implementing. I think that will vastly help you. I don't think you should abandon your internal engineer once you switch to management and once you go up the ladder. You should still be able to understand that. So those are like the aspects that we haven't tackled yet, but I think they are very important in that role as well.
I completely agree, specifically with the part when you said that even a head of engineering has to do things that the director of engineering does, but that's true for almost every job. As in, before you get the next job, the promotion, you already have to sort of start doing those things, right? It's not that when you become a director of engineering, that's day one. Okay, I got to start thinking business right now. All of those things you need to demonstrate in advance, just like an engineering manager has to demonstrate items before they become a head of engineering, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, that's
that really
true.
makes sense.
You know what's the one of the most valuable traits that you can have as a software engineer in the company? That you are this product engineer, that you understand and you care about the product. That you are able to contribute to the discussions with your product manager with ideas and understanding of their work and the perspective of the product manager. This is like so. That's like a free career advice. If you have this characteristic as an engineer, especially in the product company like OLX, that will vastly help you. Like this is like a V8 engine to your career, and also it gives you a lot of fun because if you actually care and understand the product, you can participate in the scope discussions. You can co-define the requirements, and you will have much more fun working on those.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think it's the first time I'm hearing this term product engineer. The approach is not new to me. At NetGuru, we call it that you got to have the consulting mindset, or you got to demonstrate ownership. But product engineer, I think, of course, that's not a role per se. Just like you said, it's a feature of character that you display. But I like that. I like that. I like my notes from this interview a lot. Let's go into OLX. I need to hear the story on story on how we grew from 0 to 100 engineers. And I know that you want to clear it up, that it's not that your team has 100 engineers or that you grew it from 0 to 100. So we need to hear the full story, right?
Sure, of course. Yeah, the story is interesting, I think. It's something unique, at least from my experience. So, I'm in Lisbon. I joined engineering team, real estate, in Lisbon. It used to the engineering, real estate engineering team and like product team used to be in Lisbon, but relatively after a short time when I joined, the company made a very difficult decision to move the engineering department and product as well to Poland. Because of various reasons, but one of the most important factors is that our Polish business, like Autodom, is like the biggest one, the most important one. So it meant that we have to set up a new team, almost from scratch in Poland, and we started with like almost literally a director of engineering back in the day, Łukasz, me as an engineering manager, and one developer. So, and we inherited, a huge legacy platform, a running business in 3 countries, and well, that was the starting point. Quite crazy. Of course, very very quickly we hired more people. The COVID started back in the day, so that was fun. Like we've been setting up real estate as a remote first team in OLX. OLX used to be a typical on-site company. Now we have a hybrid mode mostly, and people work remotely as well. But back in the day, real estate was meant to be the first remote-only team in OLX. So we hired people all over the place in Poland. Very quickly, we hired 2 more engineering managers that are now with me, heads of engineering. So cheers, guys, you're great. And we've started building the team. And in like 2-3 years, yes, we grew from 0 to 100 and engineers, not to mention the product counterparts. And that was a challenge because first of all, you scale your team in a way that you should not. Basically, you have new people onboarding new people, right? This is not a good situation. It creates a lot of challenges, and it was sometimes painful, but also somehow we've managed to build those teams from scratch. We had to put set a foundation for how the entire unit have to work. We defined processes with focusing quite a lot on documentation and asynchronous communication as a remote team. So we built, we defined code standards, we defined good practices, we've defined RFC process or design documents, depending how you call it, to be able to accumulate the knowledge on the new functionalities and services that are being created. We've had a remote work run book, and many of those processes we put in place. Some worked, some did not, but that was a very interesting journey to scale. We managed to find several great people along the way that helped us build this, both engineers and other managers some of them are still with us. So it was a journey, and there was also a lot of investment in the technical side. And I think this is our big achievement, to be honest, that we started from zero and we not only built a team, all the teams, we not only kept the business running with good results, but we also invested a lot in improving, in modernizing the architecture. So our starting point was the legacy monolithic PHP application, an old one, not very well maintained, no documentation, of course, obviously, and also not very stable. And since we had to build the team from scratch, there was like not a lot of knowledge on how to work with that. We had one engineer that Piotr, that is still with us, and he's a great guy that we brought from OLX. So he had some experience working with this monolith because OLX, the stacks are similar between the client units. But still, it's like you cannot scale that. So we doubled down on modernizing the platform to move as much as we can from the legacy monolith to the new architecture. And we created a new front end that was meant to replace this old PHP generated one. We created an API gateway, a GraphQL API gateway that we put in front of the monolith, so we could use the simplified strangled fig pattern to dismantle the monolith. We designed a backbone, a foundation for event-driven communication using AWS Event Bridge and Lambda. That is until today our like a central communication bus for the microservices that we've created. Like we now use a lot of like this asynchronous event-driven communication between the services. And on top of that foundation, all teams that we have now are creating their own services, extracting domains and functionalities from the legacy monolith. And this trend continues till today. And we've managed to do a very good progress. I dare to say a very good progress on modernizing our architecture. Our sellers have created a complex monetization system that is fully serverless on AWS Lambda, that is extracted from the monolith and is handling like a lot of very complex monetization logic within our platform. Seekers have created a new location system, a very interesting initiative on its own. Real-time notifications for the seekers that are looking for a perfect property. And all of that is based on the foundation that we created at the very beginning. So, I think it's working out quite well. And, summing up this whole journey, I think that we've managed to push the platform in a proper direction. And even though obviously we would like this modernization to move faster, but in parallel, we had to keep the business running. We had to build all the new features for our users. So it was always like a balance on how much we can invest versus how much we have to work on delivering the actual business features, because like they bring money. But overall, in retrospective, we've managed to push our platform in a very good direction. And some assumptions that we took at the very beginning of our path, I think they have been working well through this time. And some did not, right? Like some processes that we designed at the very beginning when the team was still relatively small, for example, we see are not scaling that well now when we are so big and we have 100 engineers working all over the place, right? So this is like a process of constant review and improvement of how we work to be able to adjust to the scale that we currently have. And we also felt some pain points, right? Growing so fast in such a short amount of time also created some pain points. Like the knowledge was not there. Like it's very hard to establish a proper culture when you have all the new people keeps flowing to your team, and basically again you have new joiners onboarding new joiners, right? So how can you establish a proper culture within the company in such situation? It's very difficult, right? So later we have to kind of work it out and fix the problems that arised in the past. But that's fine. That's like a constant process that we try to do.
I think you have a very specific way of showing pride, because what you said is something that you definitely should be proud for. All I heard is that you developed a foundation in very challenging times with basically driving a train that you had to put the rail tracks in front of, and that it actually worked out, and it is a foundation for others to use. No tech debt, as I hear it, or almost no tech debt. Yeah, you want to say something, or?
No, it's no tech debt. We have plenty of tech debt all over the place, but I think the core of what we've designed, like this core, those core assumptions, or you can call it a high-level architecture. I think this is working out, right? And there is always a tech debt. Some people say that the moment you commit the code, it's a tech debt, right? But I would say this high-level picture is quite healthy in terms of the architecture that we've introduced.
Would you say it was your most challenging project to date?
Uh,
You don't have
no,
to be
I think,
objective. You can be super subjective. You can just tell me, well, objectively it was challenging, but something, felt more challenging.
yes, of course it was challenging. Like everything there was challenging, right? Like you have new people and join. I think you can imagine like how fun it is to, for example, handle a critical incident on the legacy platform, and you have a team that never touched it, right? And you still have to handle the incident, obviously, right? So there were like a lot of challenges along the way, but honestly, and you mentioned pride. Like I think the pride actually should go to those people, like to the teams, to the teams that we had, because a lot of people there made a titanic work to make this happen, right? And both on the implementation, both like resolving those crappy incidents. Sorry. And like learning a lot along the way, and sometimes just pushing a huge pile of problems through all the obstacles that they found, but they did it, right? So like I really think they are like the ones that did the heroic work. um yeah, I forgot what was the question, sorry.
No, no. My point was whether this was the most challenging
ah
project of the case. Because objectively, it does sound challenging. Definitely was. But I'm saying, was it the most challenging for you?
um it was challenging, but honestly, it was so much fun to do that I don't think it was the most challenging project for me. Like we had, as funny as it sounds, we had a lot of fun, and that was also a very startup-like experience. Like fresh people, relatively small team. Also, we had a lot of, and I think we should be grateful for that. We had a lot of understanding from our leadership that the situation is exceptional, and we have to do things in a bit of non-standard way in order to make things happen, right? So that was like a very nice, very startup-like experience, and a lot of fun. I think like answering your question, I think the most challenging project I have now, or we have now, is this unification of capabilities across the countries, because this is not about designing new solutions. This is not about designing new architecture. This is about like untangling the extremely complex spaghetti of dependencies, of legacy code and new functionalities and business needs, and while the plane is running, right? While the train is going. So that's a long story, but this is definitely a very challenging project that we currently have. Not even on the technical level, but on basically process or management level. So that is more challenging, definitely.
All right. We are nearing to the end, and I have two questions left. And of course, dear audience, if you'd like to ask some questions, such as Mateusz asking, Mr. Damian, do you sometimes miss writing source code? I'm sure you miss it, but I'm also sure you do. But for the sake of time, I wanted to ask this question. Let's keep it short. This is a piece of advice for all of the people out there who might be in your position or just before your position. This challenge that you mentioned, this initiative, it was sort of deployed on you. You were tasked with it, right? It wasn't a bottom
Mhm.
up, it was a top down. This has to happen. What is your advice on pitching initiatives to leadership when it's you that wants something to
Mhm.
happen, or your team that wants something to happen, and understanding that it's never just a matter of this engineering makes sense, but much rather this engineering makes sense, and also it's aligned with the roadmap of the product people, and also finance allowed budget, all of these interdimensional aspects
Yeah,
that you have to account for.
that's a good topic, and yeah, we had like the situation was top to bottom, yes, but we've also managed to pitch, or I managed to pitch as well. Not only me, of course, but I managed to pitch several good, like complex initiatives, like the new location system, for example, that I mentioned, something that is aimed to allow us to deliver like really outstanding user experience in terms of looking for the properties, based on the location. This is like a very interesting and perspective project, but it started as a pitch. It started as a document. It started with, I remember, like, that was a discussion with me and with one of our SREs, Marek, about, the old system is very problematic and it doesn't give us what we need. Let's create a new one. And that's how it started. And then it, of course, it needed to be pitched to the leadership because it was a huge investment. So at the beginning of my work in OLX, actually, I got some good tips from my engineering director back then, Łukasz, how to pitch those kind of initiatives. And the key is to build a proper narration, right? Like, narration is everything, so to speak. And this is I would even say, still an understatement, because you have to convince the decision makers. And to do it, you have to talk in their language. Because the leadership above some level, we mentioned that, is focused on the business and strategic goals, right? So you have to use the language and the argumentation they understand and care about. It's not like they don't care, but they trust that you know how to handle engineering. Let's say if we are thinking about engineering ideas, they don't need to hear from you about engineering. This is like your job. What they need to hear is they need to hear the stuff that they care about, the stuff that they make decisions about. So the business and strategy. So you have to explain them why you do things. You can reverse it. Like, you should not pitch the idea that you have. You should pitch the problem solution that you would like to do, right? So you start with the problem. What is the problem that you are trying to solve? That's like the most important question. How is it affecting the business? Like, if you nail this down, if you properly identify the problem, everything else will be easy, because this is the key. Like, are you solving the actual problem? Because if you are not, there is no need for any solution. And if you don't know what kind of problem you are solving, again, like, how do you want to convince them that they should invest in your solution? Like, the problem definition is a key here. And of course, then the question: how do you know what problems to solve and which one are important? And this comes with an experience and with a good observation skills. Like, and that's also it. If you change your jobs frequently, you probably, at least not nowadays, that the market is slightly different, but you need to stay in a company for a longer period of time. I believe so, at least that's my opinion, to be able to notice and to be able to understand and notice how it works, right? Like, you need some time to basically start seeing the bigger picture. And that's natural. Of course, like, some people have good observation skills, they will do it faster, but still the time is needed. You need to, like, soak in a bit the company itself. So once you do that, you will start noticing problems and you will start noticing patterns. Like, where are we struggling? What is important? And we are struggling with it. And that's a perfect candidate for a problem statement, right? You will be able to connect those dots and understand the problem. So once you have a proper problem definition, do the research, and that's important. Do the research and think with a very open mind. What are the ways to solve the problem? Don't jump to a single solution, because again, you should not be pitching the solution. You should be pitching the problem and the solution to the problem. And there are always multiple solutions, right? If you do a proper research and even if you, like, from the beginning, you have a solution in mind, still do the research and propose several solutions to the problem when you are pitching the idea. Because it shows the decision makers, it shows to the stakeholders that you did your homework and that you are proposing something that have been objectively analyzed. and the solutions are indeed the best solutions possible for that particular problem. If you just present them with a, and this will, like, if you just present them a single solution, a single idea, that will be the first question that they will ask. You can almost be certain. Okay, like, what are the other ways we can tackle it, or easier
Yeah.
ways, or cheaper ways, or whatever. So
You
it's
always should
important,
find
right?
this way of just like in science, right? You always start with the null hypothesis. You try to disqualify your statement and you try to find evidence against it. So obviously exploring all of those possibilities is definitely welcome. And also one piece of advice, I think, Damian, you're going to agree with what I'm about to say, is prepare to fail your pitch, prepare to fail your sale, prepare to fail in general. Like, this is going to come, and actually the sooner it comes, it's not something that I wish or Damian wishes on anybody,
Mhm.
but it's a natural fact of life. And if you don't have this sort of under your belt, you won't be able to reverse engineer how to not fail again. So
Yeah.
definitely something you should look for. And Damon, I'm sorry to cut you off over here, but we have 1.5 minutes, and I want that 1.5 minute, 5 seconds of goodbyes and thank yous, 1 minute and 25 seconds of AI at OLX, because that was the last question that we had.
Yeah, it might not be enough. Okay, so I will try to be very quick. Of course, AI is like on top now. So we are both investing in AI right now quite heavily. We have a whole data science like department unit that is working on that. A lot of smart people doing the stuff that I don't understand. Like they're like smarter than me. But we already actually, when you look at real estate, at least, because this is like the department that I can tell the most about, we are already using AI or machine learning in various places, and we have moderation process that is using. I'm not the one to decide if it's machine learning or AI. It's like the lines are blurry, but this kind of solutions here, we have a system to detect, for example, duplications and duplicated ads, and this is like machine learning system. We have a whole set of tools that are analyzing the market data, because we have a lot of data about the market, right? We are a big company. We have a lot of data sources. We are able to analyze both who and what is selling, and also who and what is looking for and buying, not to mention like the typical market analysis that our commercial teams are doing. So we have a lot of data, and we have a lot of systems that are analyzing, like churning this data and predicting market trends, like identifying the trends on the market, preparing the aggregations of important information. We even have a dedicated product that is called Autodom Analytics for the sellers that they can access, and it gives them this very high level and detailed overview of the market, of the performance, like how they position with their competition. It's a very interesting tooling, and actually one of my teams is doing that. So they did amazing job there, and it's still being developed. We'll probably would like to scale it to other countries as well, but and it's very data heavy. We have on very interesting things. We have our internal, you can call it internal chat GPT. It's one plus. Yeah, it's a tool that is basically, it's a large language model that is trained on our internal knowledge base, on our Confluence documentation, and you can ask it questions. Like you can ask it about some internal systems. You can ask a question about the documentation. I think it can even write some code, although I haven't tried it. It can, for example, describe the role requirements, because it also knows those. It's a very interesting tooling. I actually have to find some more time to play with it, but it's like internal ChatGPT system that is meant to help us navigate this huge amounts of documentation that we have with the company. We have, for example, recommendation system for seekers. Like when someone is looking for some property, we are recommending them some properties that they might be interested in, and this is of course like AI driven. We have a Xenoscope that is also something available, that when you view the property, Xenoscope is analyzing the attributes of the like the characteristic of this particular property and evaluating how much this property should be worth given the market situation, right?
Okay.
And you can compare it with the actual price, and then you see, okay, is it like reasonable? Maybe there is a field for negotiation here, and so on, right? And that's not all. Like there are plenty of others. There are some very interesting experiments happening now with large language models that we hope to release soon, but I'm not allowed to tell you about those. But they are, yeah. I'm really looking forward to when we release those because I'm really interested how they will work, out in the field. This is not an easy topic after all. So yeah, we'll have to wait a bit more before we can talk about those.
All right. Listen, Damian, I feel like we've only scratched the surface despite the fact that we've spoken for 60 minutes already. And what you mentioned about this sort of internal memory, we have something that we've developed that's almost identical. It's very logical to
nice.
have, like, we have, as a services company, clients, multiple projects, under accounts, multiple, many people. So also, knowledge retention. And we have one place where we can ask about, how did that project go or what is needed here. So this is something that I expect every company to have. Maybe we can compare it sometime. But for now, thank you so much, Damian. Thank you, dear audience, and all of the people from OLX that Damian has mentioned in shoutouts from describing his career up to now. You are also getting a major thank you because you contributed to this episode by helping Damian become the person he is today. So, Damian, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really nice to be here. Great talk. And, thank you again. And maybe we'll, till the next time. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. This is not our last time. I'm going to have you on a panel with other people as well. Thank you, Damian.
Awesome.
And thank you to the audience. See you on the next episode of Disruption Talks.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.